I wasn't going to get Luigi's Mansion 3 initially, but stuff happened. Here we are. And the reason I wasn't initially going to get it is because the original is one of my favorite games of all time, even still. And after my disappointment with Dark Moon, I was just unsure of how I would feel about Luigi's Mansion 3. But I played it, and then I played the original just to, get my bearings, and let's just go. So, I guess it would be good to start by talking about Luigi's Mansion 3 on its own merits. Started off pretty good, pretty strong. Everything's very vibrant and expressive. Not very dark, surprisingly. A lot of the rooms are very well lit, even in the dark. But, alright, whatever. Seems like first and foremost, Luigi's Mansion is a puzzle game. There's so many puzzles to solve throughout everything. Pretty much anything you can interact with, there's probably going to be, something there. There's going to be money that pops out, or there's going to be a puzzle associated with it, and you've got so many different tools. There's so many different tools. You've got, your standard vacuum, you've got the suction cup, you've got your black light, and then you have Luigi, which is like the big thing this time around. Pretty much, if something looks like you can do something with it, you just try all of your tools and hope something works. There's tons of money around. There's multiple gems on each floor. It's not something where you can simply just go through the game and find everything. Some things are kind of more convoluted to get. So, I mean, there were floors where I would maybe find 2 gems and then I wouldn't even know where to look for the rest of them. So, yikes. Yikes, if you're really into puzzles, go off. But it was almost too hard to find some of them. I might look them up later, because, geez, some of them look hard to find. Pretty much the entire game is you're going up floors in a hotel. You're slowly collecting elevator buttons so you can go up floors. And each floor pretty much has a boss or something themed around that floor. And again, you pretty much just try all of your different tools and such to try to beat them. If that doesn't work, then you either have to wait for the right moment or do something at with specific timing. There were a couple bosses where I was just like, what do I do? I've tried everything that I have, but I still can't beat them, so what am I missing? And then I look it up and I'm like, oh, I have to time my flashlight blast, or I need to wait for them to swing something and get stuck in the ground. And anytime I try to do anything other than that, it resets their attack pattern. So then, if I actively try to do something, it prevents me from doing anything. Which is kind of frustrating, because I like doing stuff, and I have ADHD. And if I'm sitting there waiting, I get bored. So that wasn't great. Especially during there's several boss fights where you gotta sit and wait. Especially one where not only do you have to sit and wait, and if you turn around at the wrong moment, they restart their animation. You have to chase them through several floors, and that's... oh boy. Other than a few pretty frustrating bosses, each floor is pretty creative and unique. Each one's got kind of its own theme. You've got, and some floors kind of have more than one thing, but most floors have one thing. You've got the dining hall, you've got the lobby, you've got a couple sets of rooms on 2 different floors, and then from there is where it starts going all over the place, and you start questioning, why is this in a hotel? There are many floors in which I ask that question. Why is this in a hotel? Workout room? Sure. Pool? Absolutely. But why is Egypt in the hotel? That's what I want to know. Why is there a movie studio in the hotel? Why are all these things in a this doesn't seem like it belongs. Why is this entire floor overgrown? It's not even a garden, it's just overgrown. Why is this here? It's a bit weird. It's about the most I can say for that. Some of the themes though are pretty creative and interesting, and they do some interesting stuff with it. But it's just weird. It did kind of turn out to be kind of that problem I have with a lot of games where it's like, go to this level. Okay, now go to this level. We have this level. And it feels like there's not much around the theme. It's just the theme. Which I guess could work. Maybe it even works here. Maybe it's just me that's kind of just thinking it's weird. But who knows? The ghosts, like just the more standard ghosts, are kind of samey. You're going to be fighting a lot of the same ghosts over and over and over and over again. Let me think, how many varieties of ghosts are there? There's the regular ghost, the blue ghost, which that's going to be well over half of what you're fighting. To the point where they'll put different hats on them to mix it up. And it's like, okay, cool, I guess. Then there's the big blocky ghost, and there's the weird creepy purple one. Like there's maybe like less than 10, there's definitely less than 10 ghost varieties. And then there's 2 smaller varieties which are basically the same but look different between each other. So if you don't count that, there's maybe like 6 or 7 ghost varieties, which is kind of nothing. And usually it's the same, like 2 or 3 that's used in every area. So, I don't know. Like a lot of the ghost fights kind of got repetitive, despite that the themes were different. I don't know. And then when you're fighting the ghosts, I feel like the slam mechanic is something you have to rely too much on, because I think that's a new thing for 3, is the slam mechanic, and it does 20 damage per slam, and you can do it like 4 or 5 times. And it's like, okay, I'm pretty much just doing that the whole time. I mean, all right, it works. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. As for boss ghosts, literally every single one of them is some sort of boss fight where you have to, follow attack patterns, use a specific item, or yada yada yada. They were all right. Some of them were a bit frustrating because some of them have big attacks, not too much room to avoid them. Some of them were a little too easy. I don't know. As for the final boss, the second to last boss required a lot of management and patience and just a lot of doing stuff. That was kind of a bit yikes. Very doable, but it felt like the boss before the final boss felt like a final boss. And then there's another boss, which I'll try not to say too much about for spoilers, but you can probably figure it out if you start the game. But good God, that final boss was terrible. I hated it. I haven't actually beaten it yet, so I might go back to it, I don't know, but it was extremely frustrating. I did it like 3 or 4 times before, maybe 5, I don't know, before I actually gave up for the day, and then I haven't got back to it, and it's been a couple days. But it's got 3 phases. Each phase gets progressively harder, and it's got large attacks, and when you're in phase 3, not only is there very little wiggle room between attacks, but you also are timed in that final phase. And while I could get through the first 2 phases, sometimes no problem, sometimes, I would have trouble with those. But the final phase would always get me, every time. I could get to the final phase, I'd be doing great, I'd have nearly full health, and then I ran out of time, because there's no window to attack. Which, I don't like having that window to attack. Like, where's my window? I've got to basically do everything reflexively, and it's not like it's terrible controls or anything, but it's not the easiest thing to aim when you need to aim something at something, and when you only have half a second to do it. It's difficult. And who knows? Maybe I just suck, but I had way too much trouble with it, and I got frustrated. I quit. I don't know if I'll go back to it. Maybe I will. Who knows? But there's been a lot of final bosses lately where it's just been either frustratingly hard, or it's been more of a test of patience than a test of skill. And I do not like tests of patience, because I am not patient. I'm fine with a long boss fight, as long as it's consistently a test of skill, and not a test of my patience. Which is what I felt like the final boss here was. I'm not really sure what else I can say. The boos are in this, but you don't really need to catch them, I don't think. I mean, apart from a couple that, I really had no incentive to go looking for them, which is kind of disappointing, because I haven't started comparing it to Luigi's Mansion 1 yet, but I'm going to do that pretty soon. But Luigi's Mansion 1, the boos were a huge thing. Now it's like, whatever. Do them if you want, but you don't have to. Okay. Anyway. I decided to go back and play Luigi's Mansion 1 as well. So, here's my thoughts on 1, but also on 3 based on 1. So, in Luigi's Mansion 1, the ghost designs are quite different looking. Honestly, I think they look way better. They actually look kind of creepy. Not scary. Luigi's Mansion, it's not a scary game. It's maybe a little spooky, but that's about it. Luigi's Mansion 3 I did not find to be spooky. 1, I absolutely found to be spooky, and also, it kind of executes really well on some horror aspects. Which 3 had a few jump scares at some point, and again, not scary, but for the most part it was, oh, here's the novelty of fighting ghosts in Luigi's Mansion, but with almost no spooks. The spooks are almost non-existent, so that's something. But Luigi's Mansion 1, the mood gets set right away. It's always super dark in new rooms. And I mean, really dark. 9 times out of 10, the only thing you can see is what's being shown in your flashlight. And then everything else in your peripheries is, so dark you can barely make out what's there. And, I kind of like that. It adds to the spookiness factor. The ghosts aren't as expressive. I mean, it was a GameCube launch title, so there was not as much expressiveness. But as for the ghosts, I feel like that kind of helped. It made it kind of more unsettling. But beyond that, beyond the lack of expressiveness for the ghosts, they also made weird noises. They didn't make human-like noises. Yeah, here, maybe I'll play a couple. Those don't sound like... Those do not sound like normal noises. Those sound unsettling, creepy, spooky. The spookiness is what I really enjoyed about Luigi's Mansion. That was one of the first things that really made me realize I like horror. Because I like horror. I used to not. I used to hate it. But I used to like Luigi's Mansion. I mean, I still do, but... even back in the day. But I think that's part of what got me to realize that I like spooky things. I mean, like, I've had that situation with multiple stuff. Like, what was it? Kirby the Amazing Mirror made me realize, like, was part of what made me realize I like Metroidvanias. And, like, Hollow Knight was what initially got me to realize that fact. But, yeah, I think Luigi's Mansion kind of got me to realize that I like spooky stuff. I like horror. And I think it executes really well in that. You don't have even half of the tools that you have in Luigi's Mansion 3. Good God. So all you have is suck, blow, which you don't use the regular blow function much. The only thing you really use it for is when you get your element medals. And, those mix things up, but it's not so over-reliant on them that it's a huge part of the game. A lot of the boss ghosts, they're not really bosses, they're more just tougher enemies. But each one you kind of have to figure out, it's like a puzzle to figure out what makes each one of them vulnerable. For each one you have to reveal their heart. And in order to do that, you have to do something special. Like the first portrait ghost, you have to, face away from him until he yawns, and then you're like, oh, that's the moment. And then for the second one, you have to open the drapes and mess up her hair. And then she'll freak out. And then, there's still area bosses, but there's only like 5 of them, or 4. There might be 4 or 5. What is it? There's some mini bosses here and there where you do have to, have somewhat of an encounter, but they're not like these long, drawn-out boss fights where you need to use the tools at your disposal and then do that 3 or 4 times. It's like, no, like just you do one thing, you figure it out, bam, you did it. Good job. And then how you do on each one gives you a ranking. I don't think they have that. No, they don't have that in 3. You don't have rankings on boss ghosts. It's just, did you do it or not? Yep. Okay, good. Whereas each portrait ghost in the first game, you get a border frame. That's what I meant. You get a frame for each picture that tells you how well you did. You did gold, silver, bronze. So far, the only way I know of to get gold on most ghosts is to get them in one shot. But I don't know. There's this one ghost that, before you encounter him, you'll hear him behind a door, and this is part of what gets me on how good this game is at horror. Like, it's this weird, unsettling noise. And then you're like, what is that? Oh, I can't get in here? Okay. And then you have to, walk past it a few times. And it's this setup. It's this kind of sense of dread. And, again, Luigi's Mansion, not scary. But, there's build up to it. And then once you get there, it's not much payoff, but still. Every room feels like it belongs, or nearly every room at the very least. But most of the rooms feel like they belong in the mansion. Unlike 3, where the floors are like, why is this in a hotel? Why is this literally just Egypt theme? What? Most of the rooms in 3 kind of feel like they belong, or feel like they could be there. Some are a stretch, but most of them, it's like, okay, I can see why that's there. As for the portrait ghosts, there's a lot of variability to them. Again, they're not as expressive as 3, but limitations of the time, that's fine. I'd kind of like to see the game remade. I know they remastered it on the 3DS, which was a terrible idea. Was an absolutely terrible idea, but, hindsight, 2020, so on and so forth. As for how you collect money, in 3, it felt like there was constantly money just lying around. It's like, oh, here's some money, suck it up. Cool. Yeah, money, 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 money. But with 1, it felt like, there's a lot of money here and there, but it doesn't feel like a gratuitous amount of money. And even when you get a lot of money, it feels like more, because when it counts up, valued to more. Like, even in the first, like, area of Luigi's Mansion 1, you'll end up with, like, a higher money value than in the entire game of 3. Which is kind of weird. Like, I think by the end of Luigi's Mansion 3, I don't even know if I broke 100,000. I could be wrong, but I don't think I broke 100,000. Whereas in 1, I had well over a few million after the first area. So it just felt better. It feels more rewarding. Not only that, it's not like there are a specific set number of gems to find. Here, find them all. It's like, no, like, there's lots of gems. Just find some. It's kind of, I don't know. It feels more like ooh, I found another one. It's not like, oh, I have not collected them all. It's like, I have collected this many. I don't know. Maybe that's just my personal preference, but I liked it that way. As I said, the boos have they have this bigger presence. There's 50 that you want to try to collect. I mean, for certain points, I think there's a number of boos that you have to have in order to progress to the next area. But if you do manage to collect them all, you get a gold diamond, which is really cool. I think there's only 2 in the game. Like, everything about Luigi Mansion 1 not only feels spookier, but more rewarding. On the spooky note, there is a point in the game where all the lights go off. It's like, oh, all those rooms that you, turned on the lights? Yeah, about that. Now they're all off, and ghosts are everywhere. And that is legitimately one of the scariest things in the game. Like, again, if it's not scary, that's something that is kind of scary, because you're just like walking along, bam, like 3 ghosts are there. Oh, there's 3 more. There's more. Oh, they keep coming. You better just run. You can't catch them all. And overall, just that build up to the end fight, there's so much mystery surrounding it. And that's one thing about horror is suspense and build up. If you're constantly showing the villain getting upset and Luigi is going through my hotel and ransacking everything, I'm so upset, then it's like, okay, she just kind of seems more annoying than anything. But with 1, you get to see King Boo twice before you actually get to the end. And the first time you see him is when you release all the boos, and then the second time is when you climb down in the well, and then you're like, oh, there's Mario, I need to save him. Oh, and there's King Boo, and I can't get to them. And it gives you that sense of urgency. Like I don't know, how to get there. I don't know what I'm doing. And you get to kind of see it from Luigi's perspective, and I just kind of like the way that went. Without so many tools, it felt like you had to get better at the core mechanics, rather than, alright, let's use every single one of my moves. Oh, that didn't work? Okay, how about I wait? Let me just wait for 3 minutes until they use the certain attack, or have a window open, or do whatever. It felt like I could be more proactive instead of waiting around, and that works way better for me. And good God, does the music just amplify the atmosphere. I mean, you've got the main theme kind of playing in the background, and then some boss ghosts have a battle song that plays. That one's okay, generally. Nothing special. But then there's some other tracks that play, and it's like, ooh, that's nice and spooky. I like that spookiness. That's pretty good. With 3, I don't know if I could remember any of the music tracks. Not to say they were bad. I'm sure they were all fantastic, but I just, I don't remember it very well, because I was so focused on solving all these puzzles and I had to focus on like 5 things at once half the time. Like, oh, gotta use the suction. Oh, gotta use Luigi and the suction. It was just so many different things to remember. There were so many functions I just forgot about frequently with 3, whereas with 1, it's like, oh, you have like 2 main functions, and that's it. I would say the 2 functions in 3, and I think 1 or 2 of them were in Dark. Actually, both of them might have been in Dark Moon. But I would say the functions that I did like in 3 are the new flashlight and the blacklight. I think it's a cool idea. I think the blacklight was not quite what I would have done with it. You know, there were certain situations where I was like, I don't think it should be this way. I don't know. Just like when you use the blacklight on stuff, you gotta suck some other stuff up. And I think for certain things, you shouldn't have to suck stuff up. There are like enemy type ones where I would say, oh yeah, absolutely, have a ghost pop out and suck it up. But I don't know. I just feel like the blacklight function is nice, but I feel like it's not the way I would have done it. And yeah, I don't know. But overall, with Luigi Mansion 1, it felt better having a grasp of the core mechanics, not having to focus on anything else, and just focusing on going through a spooky mansion, you know, figuring out what makes a ghost tick, and then capturing them rather than sitting in a fight for 5 minutes and maybe getting frustrated and dying a bunch. Because I can go through Luigi's Mansion 1 no problem without dying. With 3, I got maybe halfway through the game and then I died a bunch. Because there's just this sudden difficulty spike. I don't know what it was. Especially with a couple bosses where it's like, okay, it's impossible to do this without taking a bunch of damage. And I would say overall my least favorite floor in 3 was definitely the basement. The basement was terrible and I hated it. Should have never, not the basement floor 1, the basement floor 2. That floor should have never been made. Oh my god. Everything about that floor is terrible. As for 1, I don't know if there's anything I particularly disliked. I don't know. Maybe there's one I could think of, but for the most part, I think I'm fine with every room. Yeah. So, did I like 3? I did. I don't think I share my opinion with my good friend who called it, and I quote, sexual. Clearly he had a good time. But it was alright. You know, nothing special. I would say for sure I wasn't as disappointed as I was with Dark Moon. Like with Dark Moon, I got through a couple levels, and then I'm like, yeah, I don't even think I'm halfway, but I'm gonna quit because I just can't. I don't like this. 3, I got pretty much all the way through, except for that last boss that I have yet to complete. But I still prefer 1. I could play that one over and over and over again. I don't know if it's just nostalgia goggles. I don't know if I'm right about it being better, but I don't know. Luigi's Mansion 3 is okay, but I prefer 1. I prefer the original. Alright, that's 2 games now where I've almost felt like this is actually becoming a slog. I'm gonna hopefully play something that doesn't feel like that, is something where I more look forward to it. I don't know what I'm going to finish next, but right now I'm working on Bug Fable for sure, and that one's going to be exciting. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to press all the buttons. You know, all the colorful buttons. You know the ones. So thank you, and have a good one.